In the heart of Rome, there is a land so small that you can walk across it in less than an hour. No forests, no mountains, no deserts. Just limestone walls, gilded domes, and cold stone steps that echo with your footsteps. But that place contains secrets that silence the world. Vatican. You can see it on the map. You can travel, take pictures, walk into a church and light a candle. But you will never see. The doors are not numbered. The corridors lead nowhere. Rooms that only a few people in 2,000 years have ever entered. And best of all, you never know what is being hidden. And why is no one allowed to ask? What is the Vatican? Is the center of faith? Is it a place of divine light? Or is it the dark archives of human history, where things that humanity is not ready to know lie dormant? Tonight, I will take you through the deepest levels of that silent city, not to tell a historical story, but to ask questions that only silence can answer. If you think the Vatican is just the home of the Pope, you are wrong. It is the silent heart of the most ancient secret still breathing underground. Keep quiet, don't turn on the lights, and listen with me, because what you are about to hear, not in any textbooks. Chapter 1, Vatican Library. The place that keeps things that humanity is not allowed to know. Imagine you are walking down a long stone hallway where the only light comes from small lamps mounted close to the ceiling, dim yellow and gloomy. On either side are heavy doors, closed with metal locks, no handles. Only the sound of your footsteps echoes in the thick silence like a silent warning. You have just entered a place called Vatican Archives. Not a library as you think. Not a place where you can take a library card and sit down to read a book, but a system of corridors, storage rooms, separation, and almost absolute control of information. A catacomb of knowledge where light is only allowed to pass through if it has been purified by power. Layers of documents hidden for more than 12 centuries. The Vatican Apostolic Library, or Bibliotheca Apostolica Vaticana, was officially founded in 1475, but most of the documents inside date back much further. Some were handwritten on sheepskins as early as the 1st century. Some are originals of texts that exist nowhere else in the world. Currently, the library is estimated to hold more than 80,000 rare ancient manuscripts, about 1.1 million books, more than 8,000 ancient maps, and hundreds of thousands of letters between popes and kings, generals, scientists, scholars around the world over the past 200 years. But here's the thing, only a fraction of all that has ever been published. What's in the rooms you're never allowed to enter? Many say the Vatican is keeping secrets that could, shaking the major religions, overturning the concepts of human history, even clarifying things that current science still cannot explain. Some examples have been rumored. One toward original of the Book of Enoch. The book was removed from the Bible because of its detailed descriptions of fallen angels, flying creatures, and non-earthly beings. 2. The true history of Jesus, including the missing years between his youth and the beginning of his ministry, which may indicate that he traveled to India, Egypt, and learned things that are not recorded in the current Bible. 3. Evidence of prehistoric civilization, drawings, maps, or descriptions of areas such as Atlantis, Lemuria, Hyperborea, were recorded by ancient monks after informal contacts. 4. Reports of supernatural phenomena, UFOs, extraterrestrial contact, recorded by the Vatican for centuries, from Roman times to the present. All could be in metal-covered leather boxes, placed deep in basements where only a very few people are allowed to enter. Who is allowed to read and who is not? You can't just stroll into the Vatican Library like a normal library. Even being a scholar isn't enough. To gain access, you must have a letter of recommendation from a prestigious university, present the research purpose clearly and academically approved by the Vatican Library Council. And most importantly, you can only read what they allow. You are not allowed to touch the original. You are not allowed to copy or scan it at will. You are only allowed to read it under the supervision of the librarian. Unpublished documents. It is believed that there are at least 30,000 sealed documents, never seen by anyone other than the Pope or a few special cardinals. Some of them are called Codex Vaticanus 325. The ancient Greek translation of the Bible has an additional passage that was cut in the current version. Liber Pontificalis Nocturnus, Night Diaries of 6th century popes, recording mystical experiences. Galileo's dossier contains the content of his trial and things not recorded in official history. Freemasonry contact records, a collection of correspondence between popes and secret societies over the centuries. Final question, why keep it secret? Is the Vatican protecting humanity, or is it protecting its own power? If you knew that an ancient text said that the world had gone through 4 recreations, that human history did not begin with Babylon, but with civilizations that sank to the bottom of the ocean, that angels may not be symbols, but real beings, would you still believe what is taught in school? Are you still awake? If one day you walk into the Vatican Library and stand before an ancient manuscript, handwritten on animal skin, the ink smudged, the last line written in a shaky hand, whoever reads this, please keep quiet. What will you do? Perhaps the Vatican keeps these things not to hide, but to wait. Wait until humanity no longer seeks knowledge to control each other, but to understand that there are truths that only open up in silence. Chapter 2. Vatican Secret Documents. The sealed things in the heart of Rome, beneath the ancient domes and ivory limestone of Vatican City, there is a place that no public map can show, no tourist can visit, and no rumor can describe what it hides. Vatican Secret Archives. The official name is Archivum Secretum Vaticanum, meaning private documents of the Pope. But the Latin word secretum, in addition to meaning secret, has another meaning, private, not for anyone else. Locked doors in the dark, imagine a deep underground passage. The walls are old stone, plastered with ash-colored lime. The temperature is precisely controlled, no more than 20 degrees Celsius. The humidity is stable, and there are absolutely no windows. Inside, more than 50,000 shelves of documents, stretching nearly 85 kilometers, a giant maze of paper, leather, wood, ink, and time. Some of the files date back to the 8th century. Some are still stored in their original leather cases, and others never opened since they were saved. Hundreds of years ago. Who can enter? No one is allowed to enter or leave this place without permission. Even cardinals, monks, scholars, all must have special approval from the Pope or the supreme representative of the library. And even if you are allowed, you are only allowed to request a maximum of 3 records per day. No taking them out, no full copies, no video recording. A historian once said, "When you open a manuscript in the secret archives, you feel like you are peeking into the world's memory." Documents, that can change history. It is believed that within this secret archive, there are documents that have the potential to completely reset humanity's faith in what they think is truth. For example, Kirchman's original transcript of Galileo's trial, 1633, full documentation of his testimony, rebuttals, and the real reason he was declared a heretic. It is said Galileo was never convinced, but threatened. 2 letters of Pope Leo on the Apocalypse of Satan. Jean. A letter recounts a vision where the devil asks God for permission to rule over humanity for 100 years. Many believe that this is the root of the Fatima prophecy and the world events that followed. 3 Nazi contact records, documents about secret negotiations between the Vatican and the Hitler regime. Was the Vatican silent in exchange for preserving religious institutions? 4 Library of the Jesuits, records of expeditions to America, Asia, and paranormal phenomena witnessed by monks. There are also records of unidentified flying creatures, teleportation, and communication through consciousness. Things the Vatican doesn't publish, not because they're wrong, but because they're not yet allowed to be understood. Have you ever thought, what if in that archive there were documents describing a lost civilization that lived at the same time as Jesus? What if there were handwritten letters from someone describing seeing angels with the naked eye? And there were witnesses? What if there were manuscripts that said, life did not begin on earth? Who then has the ability and the responsibility to explain it to the rest of the world, the Vatican chose to remain silent, not because they had nothing to say, but because they knew. People often fear what they do not understand. Between the pages, something is still breathing. There were nights when the vault guards recounted. They heard rustling in the dark. They smelled old ink, even though no one was opening the documents. And sometimes, they felt as if they were being watched by something invisible. They don't say anything, just bow their heads, walk past, and continue to guard secrets that maybe they themselves don't want to know. Amidst the layers of dust, smudged ink, animal skin, ancient Latin inscriptions, there may be a truth that the world is not yet quiet enough to receive. A missing piece, an answer that has not yet been heard. The Vatican doesn't forbid you from knowing. They just keep it until you know how to ask. Chapter 3, The Black Pope, the man behind the curtain of power. Did you know the Vatican has two popes? A man in white. You see him at every major ceremony. He appears in public, gives blessings, reads prayers, shakes hands with heads of state. He is the head of the Roman Catholic Church, symbolically. But there is another person in black. Rarely appears in public, not sitting on the throne, but having the power to mobilize tens of thousands of Jesuits. He is called by a mysterious name in the scholarly world, the Black Pope, a man not elected by the people, but has power over the Pope. The title Black Pope is not an official title. It is the nickname given to the Superior General of the Jesuits, a person with a lifelong tenure who controls the world's vast system of education, research, and sometimes religious intelligence. No one elected him. No one supervised him, except the Pope himself. But in many periods of history, the Pope himself was influenced by this man. The Jesuits, academic institution or underground network.
If tonight's story makes you think, or simply makes you feel more peaceful, please like and subscribe to the channel.
Founded in 1540, the Jesuits were a group of wise men, monks, scholars, who traveled around the world to preach, teach, and research. But gradually, they became an organization with power that transcended religious boundaries. They founded the most prestigious universities in Europe. They became personal advisors to emperors and kings. They gathered knowledge from China, Japan, the Middle East, and they have a tight internal monitoring system, secret, harsh discipline, all under the direction of one person, the Superior General, commonly known as the Black Father. Black Pope. Who is he really? There are not many pictures of him, no speeches, no social media accounts. His real name is Arturo Sosa, Venezuelan. He speaks softly, wisely, and calmly. But those who have worked in the Vatican whisper, when he walks into a meeting, everyone goes silent. When he made the proposal, no one objected. Not because he ordered it, but because he knew too much. Hypothesis: one person, two worlds. Many researchers believe that the Black Pope is the one who keeps secrets that the White Pope cannot hold. He knew the contents of the classified files well. He oversaw centers for metaphysics, ancient history, and comparative religion. He kept in touch with scholars outside the Vatican, but did not make them public. Some people even believe that the Jesuits are keepers of human memory. They hold maps of Atlantis, ancient formulas on energy, unorthodox theories of evolution, and even extraterrestrial encounters. The conflict between light and darkness? The Vatican has always been a place that keeps a balance between two aspects. On the one hand, they are the leaders of faith, gentle, compassionate, public. But on the other hand, they are also a powerful organization, needing strategy, control, supervision. The White Pope is the one you see. The Black Pope is the one you don't see. One represents the light in public. One represents order in the darkness. Maybe no one really knows the full role of the Black Pope. There is nothing to prove that he is a bad person. There is also nothing to prove that he is a good person. But surely he is the one who keeps secrets. The one who knows things that others should not know. The one who stands on the border between knowledge and faith, between light and darkness, between science and the soul. If the Vatican is an intricate clock, Then the Black Pope is the hidden cog inside, never revealed, but without which everything would stop moving. Chapter 4. The Jesus and the Vatican. A never-break tie. Late at night in the Vatican is not exactly quiet. There are hallways that never turn off the lights. There are offices that remain lit with yellow lights all night long. Not for praying, but for planning. Among the thousands of monks living and working inside the Vatican, there is a group of people who speak little, appear little, but are present everywhere. The Jesuits. The Jesuits. They don't carry golden scepters like the Pope. They don't stand out on ancient murals, but they hold the soul of knowledge, worse than sometimes the fate of the world. The birth of the Jesuits, an iron oath and an invisible mission. The Jesuits were founded in 1540 by Saint Ignatius Loyola, a wounded Spanish soldier who dedicated his life to serving God with wisdom and discipline. Unlike other religious orders, the Jesuits do not build monasteries or live isolated from the world, but go deep into the heart of the world. They entered the palace to advise the king. They traveled to distant lands to preach, learn languages, and record history. They opened universities to train talented people, and they took an oath: obey the Pope, whether in darkness or in light. The Jesuit system of thought as an intellectual grid. If the Vatican is the heart, then the Jesuits are the brains that work silently. From Europe to Asia, from Africa to America, they established academic centers, research facilities for archaeology, astronomy, linguistics, theology, not to show off knowledge, but to collect, understand, and control. Ancient Oriental documents, ancient Hebrew texts, forbidden religious texts, indigenous legends, erased histories, all pass through their hands. And not everything is published. Secret activities in history. For many periods, the Jesuits were suspected of being a theocratic spy organization. They were expelled from many countries, Portugal, France, Spain, because they were accused of political interference. It was dissolved by Pope Clement XIV in 1773, but was restored shortly afterwards, under pressure from monarchs who needed its support. They are believed to be behind many shocking events, such as the Galileo investigation, secret discussions on the theory of evolution, and even secret negotiations with the Muslim world. An organization hidden in the guise of holiness. The Jesuits in the 21st century, still active. Few people know that. The Jesuits currently operate 230 universities and colleges worldwide. There are over 16,000 active members, many of whom are experts in the fields of strategy, technology, security, religious studies, and communications. And the current Pope, Francis Westerner, also comes from the Jesuit order. This is the first time in the history of the Catholic Church that a Pope has come from this organization. Scholars say the Jesuits are no longer in the background, they are in the center. An invisible hand is always in the Vatican. Whether you call them scholars, priests, or strategists, Jesuits are always there, in secret meetings, papal elections, global religious strategy drafts. They are not loud, they do not announce much, but they are present at the defining moments of church history. If the Vatican is the stage, then the Jesuits are the scriptwriters behind the curtains. If one day you enter a prestigious university with a cross symbol, where there is a large library with ancient books that no one reads, and an old man with bright eyes that seem to have seen too many things, be careful. You might be standing in front of a Jesuit priest, the one who knows how to keep quiet, but is also the one who has read things that the world has never dared to ask. Chapter 5. Vatican and Aliens. The publicly rejected hypothesis. Tonight, we will leave the stone corridors, the ancient manuscripts, the creeds, and the frescoes of saints behind, and step outside, heads up. In the Vatican night sky, as anywhere in the world, there are still stars quietly burning. But if you look long enough, have you ever wondered, is anyone looking back from the other side? The Vatican and the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Here's something few people know. The Vatican owns one of the oldest astronomical observatories in the world. Official name, Vatican Observatory, operating since the 16th century. This observatory was once located on top of St. Peter's Basilica, then moved to Castel Gandolfo, a quiet place away from the city lights. And now their most modern facility is located in Arizona, USA, under the management of Jesuit priests specializing in space research. What are they looking at? It's not just Mars, Saturn, or eclipses. Vatican astronomers study unusual spectral signals from distant planets, extraterrestrial life in organic form, bacteria, microorganisms, and some years they hold closed conferences on interplanetary awareness. Why would a religious organization care that humans are not the only creatures in the universe? Faith in aliens. Contradiction or not? In 2008, a strange event happened. Father Jose Gabriel Funes, the head of the Vatican Observatory at that time, told the magazine L'Osservatore Romano, "We cannot rule out the possibility that there are other intelligent beings in the universe, created by God just like humans." A gentle saying, but enough to shake many believers. Because if there are other creatures besides humans, with souls, with intelligence, with the ability to believe in a creator, then that means God did not create just one world, but possibly many worlds. Have a secret file on strangers? Many theories suggest that the Vatican has collected reports of close encounters happening in Italy, Spain, Latin America, recorded by local clergy, light phenomena in the sky over Rome. From the Middle Ages, records of angels with different forms than humans, able to fly, able to disappear. A copy of the testimony of the pilot who saw a strange flying object near the Vatican. These documents, if any, are in the secret archives, never released. The Vatican knows but doesn't want to say? The reason could be very simple. If the Vatican confirms that aliens are real, then the entire theological system would have to be rewritten. Does original sin still have meaning if other species also sin? Heaven, hell, do they apply to extraterrestrial beings? Did Jesus come only to humans or to other civilizations as well? More questions than answers. And when the world is not ready, silence is sometimes the wise choice. But what if God is not just the God of men? There is a line of meditation that says, the universe is infinite, and consciousness is not limited to the human form. If that is true, then the existence of aliens does not destroy faith, but expands faith. God is not an old man with a white beard sitting on a cloud, but the ultimate wisdom that extends into every living being that knows how to love, understand, and give. As night falls over Rome, the sky above St. Peter's remains unchanged. But perhaps, somewhere in the vastness of space, there is a soul, an intelligence, looking down on this earth, asking us the same question we once asked God. Were we created for love? The Vatican may know, but they will only tell if you learn to listen in silence. Chapter 6, The Prophecy of Fatima. Part 3, Never Revealed. In the dark night of Portugal in 1917, in the middle of the deserted fields of Fatima, 3 shepherd children stood silently under a strange light from the sky, a light that did not come from the sun, but seemed to come from somewhere else, higher, farther, and unlike earthly light. The story begins as a legend, but then recorded by the Vatican. 3 children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, said they had seen a shining lady dressed in white, glowing, standing on a cloud. She was the Virgin Mary, who appeared to impart 3 secrets, 3 prophecies, and from there, one of the greatest mysteries the Vatican has ever kept a secret was born. Part 3 of the Fatima prophecy, the part that has never been fully revealed. The 3 secrets of Fatima, only 2 parts revealed. Part 1 depicts the image of hell, where sinful souls are burned, a scene that scared the 2 children to tears. Part 2, prediction of World War II, if people do not return to God, and the request to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Part 3, handwritten by Lucia and sealed, handed to the Pope, with the message not to be published before 1960, and only when the Pope considers the world ready. But 1960 passed, without a word. 40 years of silence, and the controversial announcement. It was not until 2000 that the Vatican finally released the third part of the prophecy. The plot, according to the official statement, is about an assassinated pope, shot dead by soldiers while passing through a ruined city amidst countless corpses and ruins, a scene symbolizing the suffering and sacrifice of the church. But soon many scholars, theologians, and even some cardinals who had read the original began to doubt it. Something wrong? One, Lucia, the prophet, was still alive in 2000, but she was not allowed to read the Vatican's published explanation herself. Two, Cardinal Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVII. It was stated in 1984 that if the third part of Fatima is revealed, there will be churches collapsing. Three, the published document is only a few hundred words long. But according to witnesses who have read the original, Part 3 is much longer, with a passage mentioning crisis of faith in the church, spiritual civil war inside the Vatican, and most importantly, the emergence of a dark power within the ranks of the clergy. The hidden part hypothesis. Many believe that the published portion is just the surface, the real original, may refer to something too horrific to share publicly. Some passages that were rumored to be part of the cut. The smoke of Satan has entered the temple. From the heights of power, darkness will embrace the light. People will see signs in the sky, but they will not be from God. And the final paragraph, which is said to have caused a pope to faint when he read it, says, "A dark age will come when men will call evil good and light false. Only those who keep their faith in silence will pass through the purifying fire." Prophecy or warning for the coming future. No one dares to confirm the original. The Vatican maintains that the published part is complete. But today, when the world is immersed in division, war, moral crisis, erosion of faith, many people wonder, are we living in the third part of Fatima? And if so, what comes next? Why doesn't the Vatican release everything? The answer may be simple: because people are not ready, because not everyone is strong enough to read that without panicking, without despairing. For the truth, maybe not to believe, but to awaken. Imagine you are sitting in a cold stone monastery. On the table is a yellow envelope. The red seal is broken. You know that inside is the rest of the Fatima prophecy. Will you open it? You know that. If you open it, you won't be the same person anymore. Not because of the content, but because of the feeling that something beyond human control is present. There are prophecies not meant to be read, but lived through, day by day, choice by choice. Chapter 7, Vatican. During the Nazi period, a deal in the dark. When you hear the word Vatican, what do you think of? A papal throne amidst a resplendent golden sanctuary? Hymns ringing out from under a cathedral dome? A sacred place above the turbulent course of history? But there were times. Even the Vatican did not stand aside. Even went into the dark. In the 1930s and 1940s, when Europe was engulfed in fire and bullets, when fascism reigned, when millions of people disappeared in silence, there was a question that never had a satisfactory answer. What did the Vatican do during World War II? The silence of Pope Pius XIII. Eugenio Pacelli was elected Pope in 1939, taking the name Pius XII, just as Adolf Hitler began to expand his power across Europe. Throughout the war, he was said to have known what was happening to the Jews: concentration camps, genocide, mass deportations, but he did not speak out publicly. The Vatican remained neutral. It did not directly condemn the Nazis. It did not call for clear action. The Reichskonkordat Treaty, a secret exchange? In 1933, shortly after Hitler came to power, the Vatican, then headed by Cardinal Pacelli, later Pope Pius XIII, as Secretary of State, signed a treaty with the Nazi regime, the Reichskonkordat. In theory, the treaty protected the freedom of the Church in Germany, but in practice, it was the Vatican's first official recognition of the Hitler regime. Many historians ask, why would the Vatican sign a treaty with a regime that had just come to power through oppression? What do they gain? And what do they have to give up? Underground routes and shady finances. Towards the end of the war, the Vatican was accused of helped many Nazi officials escape via the rat lines, through Italy to South America's support for fake documents for war criminals, using the Vatican Bank to transfer and launder money from Axis black funds. Documents from the CIA and Mossad have revealed some Jesuits and Vatican cardinals acted as intermediaries in the sale of gold, art, and property stolen from Jews. There is no official confirmation, but fragmentary evidence is still scattered in unopened secret archives. Justification: the Vatican chooses silence to save lives. Some Catholic scholars argue that Pius XIV chose to remain silent so as not to anger Hitler and avoid making the situation worse. Instead, he secretly supported organizations that saved people, hiding Jews in monasteries, hospitals, and seminaries. The truth may lie between two sides. The Vatican is not completely complicit, but it is not completely innocent either. Between light and darkness, they chose to stand in a gray area, and maybe they knew something beyond the war. Another theory, less mentioned, but increasingly believed: the Vatican compromised not because it was afraid of Hitler, but because it was afraid of the secrets the Nazis were unearthing. The Nazis sent expeditions to Tibet, Egypt, and Antarctica, searching for ancient technology, spiritual powers, and artifacts believed to contain knowledge from before mankind. And they may have found something the Vatican wants to keep secret at all costs. If one day you find an old photo taken in a cold stone vault under the Vatican, there, a man in a white robe is shaking hands with a man in a black military uniform. No one laughed, no one spoke. There was just one look, as if they both knew something that humanity had never been told. Maybe the Vatican didn't side with Hitler, but maybe they sided with secrecy, knowing that there are truths that would tear the world apart if exposed too soon. Chapter 8: The Inquisition, Witches in the Darkness of the Medieval Vatican. Have you ever imagined a woman, hands bound, wearing an iron helmet, mouth gagged with rope, was being led into a cold stone room where the only light was from a torch on the wall? She did not know what she was accused of. She only knew that the person calling her a heretic was a representative of God. And right in the holiest place of the Church, the Vatican, the Inquisition was born. Not to judge earthly justice, but to protect absolute truth. The birth of the Inquisition. When faith became an instrument of power. The Inquisition was born in the 12th century under Pope Lucius III and officially developed into a pan-European system under Pope Gregory IX in 1231. It was originally created to deal with groups that the Church considered deviating the faith, such as the Cathars, Waldensians, or other minor sects. But very quickly, it turned into an instrument of intellectual and spiritual terror. Whoever doubts the Bible is a heretic. Whoever cures with herbs is a witch. Whoever says that God does not punish the poor is blasphemous. And all that can be tortured, interrogated, burned alive in the name of saving souls. Trials without justice. You are accused. No evidence is needed. No witnesses are needed. Just a whisper from someone in the village, and you are arrested. You are locked in prison. You do not know the whistleblower. You do not have a lawyer. And then the rituals begin. Rack, bone-pulling table, hot iron chair, skull crusher, fire hanging cage. Question: do you deny making a deal with the devil? Penalty: burning alive to purify the soul from sin. All happens in the name of God. The Vatican knew and approved. Some documents show the Vatican does not directly torture, but authorizes and supervises it. Interrogation manuals were printed in Rome and sent throughout Europe. Every time the sentence is carried out, the presiding officer receives a blessing from a priest. And some major witch trials in France, Germany, Spain, all had representatives of the Holy See attending. Hundreds of thousands of people have disappeared. There are no official figures, but historians estimate more than 300,000 people were convicted of heresy during the Inquisition. Between 40,000 and 60,000 people were executed, mostly women. Many died in prison, on the torture rack, or burned to death in front of praying crowds. Women were the main victims of invisible condemnation. Most people who are called witches are widow living alone, midwife, herbalist, people with knowledge of astronomy, herbal medicine, ancient music. The dreamer saw something strange and then told it. The church doesn't understand them, and instead of listening, they burn them, not because they are demons, but because they are different. When faith is distorted by fear, the Inquisition existed not to defend God, but to defend a single version of the faith, the version that the Vatican controlled. Anyone who thought differently, whether a scientist like Galileo, a philosopher like Giordano Bruno, or an illiterate fisherman, could become a threat. If you walk through an ancient square in Rome, there is a statue of a man covered in a cloak, standing silently under the night sky. That is Giordano Bruno, burned alive for saying, "The universe is infinite, and God is present everywhere." Perhaps today, the Vatican no longer burns people, but that memory still burns in the stones, in the night wind, and in the silent prayers of those who were once called heretics, simply because they saw the world differently. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe they were the first to see it right too soon. Chapter 9, Forgotten Relics. Are the cross, the Holy Grail, and the remains of Jesus hidden in the Vatican? There are objects that are not just wood, metal, stone, or dried blood. They are the crystallization of faith, the last remaining fragments of a shocking moment in history, the symbols that millions of people look up to in tears and prayers. They are called relics. And in the heart of the Vatican, among its countless stone corridors, small chapels, and chilly underground vaults, many believe the most sacred and dangerous relics ever known lie hidden. The true cross, the piece of wood once soaked in the blood of the Savior. Legend has it that the cross on which Jesus was crucified was found by Saint Helena, the mother of Emperor Constantine, in the 4th century in Jerusalem. The cross was then split into many pieces and scattered to major churches around the world. But the largest piece, believed to be the most important, is now kept in a small chapel near St. Peter's Basilica inside the Vatican. There is no official statement. There is no public scientific testing. There was only the narrative and a line of people kneeling silently. If there really is a piece of wood left that touched the blood of the Redeemer, is it a symbol or an object carrying supernatural energy? The Holy Grail, the mythical Grail, is it really in the Vatican? Since the Middle Ages, the Knights Templar have traveled far and wide in search of the Holy Grail, the cup that is said to have contained the blood of Jesus when he was crucified. It is believed to be capable of heal all wounds, bring eternal life, and only appear before the worthy person. There are many theories that the Vatican found the Holy Grail in the 12th century, but did not announce it. A group of cardinals were assigned to guard and never speak out. The cup was placed in a stone box, unopened, beneath the ancient chapel near Castel Gandolfo. Why keep it a secret? Maybe because people fear that, if the world knows it exists, no one will believe in faith anymore, but will only seek power. The real remains of Jesus. Are they lying in the dark? One of the greatest mysteries of the Christian world is, where did Jesus' body go after he was resurrected? The Vatican announced, "The Lord has risen, his body ascended into heaven. No remains left." But some unofficial archaeological documents said to have appeared in the Vatican secret library say a bone fragment wrapped in linen bearing the name Yeshua in Aramaic. A tombstone discovered near Nazareth, dated to match notes of a 14th century French monk, speaks of the holy body preserved in a silver casket beneath the Hill of Tranquility. If the Vatican knows it, why not make it public? Because if people knew that God had a body, faith in the resurrection could be shattered. The Turin Shroud, a trace of life or a controlled experiment. Shroud of Turin, believed by many to have covered Christ's body after his death, is now kept in Italy, but many copies, fragments, and scientific analyses are held at the Vatican. Although tests have suggested that the cloth dates from the Middle Ages, results have been inconsistent. Many experts affirm matte photo on canvas is not paint, no trace of human hand, and the level of detail was not possible with the manual techniques of the time. Some psychic researchers believe that the image is the result of a light emission when the soul leaves the body. If one day you were to step into the secret room below the Vatican, where candlelight shines on a silver cup shaped like a lily, before a rough piece of wood engraved with Hebrew letters and a strip of cloth stained red as blood, what do you think? Is it a relic? Is it evidence? Or is it a reminder that faith is not in the thing, but in how we look at it? Perhaps the Vatican keeps relics not to hide them, but to protect us from our own thirst for power. Chapter 10, Vatican, Light on the High Hill, or Keeper of the Dark Layers. The Last Night. The story takes you through 10 chapters and 10 layers deep of a world with two faces. One face turned to the sky and the other turned to the darkness. The Vatican, from the outside, is the pinnacle of faith, home to billions of people who believe in God. But inside it is a complex web of history, power, memory, error, light, and darkness. Vatican, a machine that exists between two worlds, a religious center, but also a country with its own passports, army, finances, a place that preaches love, but has signed treaties with bloody regimes, a place that preaches the truth, but once kept silent in the face of disaster. It is a place where light is kept, but in its basements there are millions of documents that no one has read and may never be read. What did we see? You have been with me through the secret archives, dozens of kilometers long, where pages written in ink and blood remain silent. Supernatural mysteries of Fatima, aliens, unpublished prophecies, hidden popes, shadowy dealings, legendary relics, real or not, are still guarded in silence. And the wounds of history, from the Inquisition to the Nazi era, for which the Vatican has never truly apologized in words. But is the Vatican a traitor to the light? None of us are qualified to judge an organization that has survived more than 2,000 years, through war, death, division, betrayal, and long nights without prayer. Perhaps it is this very persistence that makes the Vatican a keeper of memory, whether that memory is beautiful or terrifying. The Vatican is a safe for humanity, where we keep not only the sacred, but also the things we do not want to face. And maybe that's their real role. Keep quiet, not to hide, but to wait. Wait until people are ready to look straight at history, at their own mistakes, and realize that faith is not proven by light. It is proven by our ability to keep faith, even when walking in the dark. If one day you pass by St. Peter's Square, amidst the crowd of people taking pictures and the ringing bells, stop for a moment. Look up at that big dome, where the light shines straight up into the sky, and ask yourself, what is underneath it, and what is inside you that resonates with the things no one dares to name? The Vatican is not just a place, it is a mirror of humanity, reflecting both light and darkness. And in that reflection, we recognize ourselves. Chapter 11, Doors that do not open, forbidden areas in the Vatican. There are doors in the Vatican that have no handles, no signs. No one stands guard because no one is allowed to go near them. They lie silently in winding corridors of ancient stone, where the yellow light is so dim that it seems as if it does not dare shine too much light itself. And sometimes, it's the absolute silence around a door that's the clearest warning. Vatican, a multi-layered labyrinth. No one knows the whole thing. Many people think the Vatican is small, but the Vatican is more than just the surface. Beneath the sky-high domes lies a network of basements, tunnels, storage rooms, spiral staircases, and enclosed emergency exits. Built and expanded over the course of more than 1,500 years, there are no public maps. No maps are allowed to circulate outside the Vatican, and no one is allowed to claim to know the entire Vatican. Where do the doors lead? Worse, there is a door leading down to the 6th basement, where the temperature is always below 15 degrees Celsius. There was a door that opened into a dark room, just a stone table and an air vent. There is a door that opens only once a year, at midnight on Easter, when only the Pope enters and leaves 33 minutes later. No one asked, no one dared to ask. Room number 9, the unnamed mystery in the document. Some scholars leaked information about an area under the Sistine Chapel, internally coded as room number 9. There is no official record other than a single 3 lines in a 1958 report. Special space, sealed, not for exhibition purposes, access limit, maximum 3 people per century. The room, it is said, contains an object of unknown origin, discovered during the reign of Pope Urban VIII. A stone tablet with symbols not in the Latin alphabet and emitting a faint blue light in the darkness despite having no power source. No one was allowed in after 1981. The door has never been opened since. The passageway connecting the library to the underground floor, Domus Silentia, the House of Silence. Since 1997, several Vatican library employees have been transferred without reason after mistakenly entering a partially locked hallway. They describe it with only one phrase. A steep, paved path led to a closed door carved with an eye and an upside-down cross. The Vatican then sealed the area and gave it an internal code name, Domus Silentia, House of Silence. Some believe it holds the first text written after Jesus' death, uncensored and potentially upending modern theology. Is there a passage to the Pope's crypt that never existed? Technical drawings from 1929 show a large cavity beneath the supposed burial site of Pope John Paul II, who reigned for just 33 days before suddenly dying. But when archaeologists requested excavations for geological surveys, the Vatican refused outright. No reason. Since then, many people have assumed that underneath that area is a private underground vault, where special remains are kept, unnamed or should not be named. And if those doors open, people ask, why hide? If it's just a document or relic, why not publish it? The answer is always a shake of the head. Maybe because what lies within is too sacred. No one is allowed to take it lightly. Or maybe because it is the door to questions that humanity should not face. What if there was evidence inside that the Bible had been edited? What if there was evidence that God did not come to earth just once? Or what if there was an object not of this world being kept safe? Imagine, you are standing in a deserted stone hallway, lit only by a flickering candle. In front of you is a door, no lock, no handle. You know full well, if you go in, you will no longer be the same person. There are things we should not know. There are doors that do not need to be opened, because their mere existence has silenced the world. Chapter 12, Non-Christian Symbols. Who hidden them in the Vatican? Have you ever walked into an old church, looked up at the gold-painted ceiling, and noticed between the angels in the Bible, there was an unspoken symbol? An eye in a triangle, a 6-pointed star, a spiral circle with no starting point. No one explained, no one pointed out. It all just passed by, as if it had never been there. Strange symbol in the heart of the Vatican. Where is it? Although not published, many scholars have noted over 200 symbols of non-classical Christian origin scattered throughout. Sistine Chapel, Ceiling Arch of St. Peter's, Basilica, Niccoline Chapel, glass door, stone pillar near the tomb of St. Peter, and especially on the vestments of some cardinals in the Middle Ages. These symbols include the all-seeing eye in a triangle, a symbol of divine supervision, or supreme power labyrinth associated with ancient Greek ritual, Mithra's 6-pointed star, used in Judaism, Kabbalah. Reverse flame torch, a symbol of enlightenment, but also a sign of the Luciferian cult who introduced these symbols into the sacred buildings. Many believe that Renaissance architects, such as Michelangelo, Bernini, Raphael, were hired by the Vatican to decorate the interior of the church, and they incorporated ancient mystical symbols, blending religion, philosophy, astrology, and science. Why? To demonstrate timeless wisdom, to incorporate deeper layers of meaning that only those with enough understanding can see, or to conceal a knowledge that cannot be publicly expressed. Pre-Christian symbol? Some symbols are believed to have existed before early Christianity, including Tree of Life appears in both Sumerian mythology and the Hebrew Bible phoenix, the creature that symbolizes resurrection in Egyptian mythology. Eye of Horus, one of the carvings near the Sistine Chapel, under ancient mortar. The ancient church once considered these symbols heretical, yet somehow they survived in frescoes, stained glass, and stone carvings for centuries. A cryptic joke or a warning? There is a theory that icons are not for worship. They are clues that the Vatican holds not only the secrets of Christianity, but also of ancient wisdom that goes far beyond biblical times. Many scholars of mysticism believe that the Vatican absorbed the knowledge of ancient Babylon, Egypt, India, and destroyed sects, and used them as keys to decipher supernatural phenomena, astronomy, and reincarnation. The Vatican does not deny, but never explains. When icons are asked about in the Papal Council for the Arts, the answer is usually, it's a symbolic art style. It shouldn't be taken literally. But no one answered. Why did the symbol of the all-seeing eye appear on the old Pope's throne? Why is a circle within a square, the symbol of perfect man according to Hermes, located on the floor of the Clementine Chapel? And why there is an octagonal room, quiet, with no cross, only 7 ancient astronomical symbols hanging around the walls? If you pass by an old church tomorrow night and see a carving that no one explains to you, don't ask. Look and quietly place your hand on it. Then ask yourself, who put this symbol here and what do they want us to see? Maybe the symbol is knowledge. Maybe it is a warning. Maybe it is a door. But that door will only open if you know how to see with your third eye, not your physical eyes. Chapter 13, Silent Deaths in the Vatican. Amid thick stone walls, ancient columns, and gilded domes, the Vatican appears like an impregnable kingdom. There, every whisper is considered. Every footstep echoing in the hallway carries the weight of centuries. And every death is not always told in its entirety, because in the more than 2,000-year history of the Church, there have been deaths that happened silently. No official farewell, no public funeral, no investigation. There are only question marks, blurred records, and memories no one dares to recall. Pope John Paul I, the Pope who reigned for only 33 days. In 1978, Pope John Paul was elected as successor to the throne of St. Peter, a man beloved by many, gentle, humble, and intent on strong reform within the Vatican. But after only 33 days, he was found dead in his room. No one was by his side. No official doctor performed an autopsy. The Vatican declared the cause to be a sudden heart attack, but there are no autopsy records. The first person to discover the body was a nun, not mentioned in any subsequent reports. And just a week before his death, he revealed that he would review the financial operations of the Vatican Bank. Several previously unpublished documents say that John Paul I began investigating the connection between the Vatican, several high-ranking cardinals, and the P2 organization, a secret society involved in money laundering and underground power in Italy at that time. He never completed the list of reforms. The original, if it existed, has never been found. Cardinals who suddenly retired and never returned. Since the beginning of the 20th century, at least 6 Vatican cardinals have suddenly resigned for health reasons, just days after participating in secret councils or being involved in sensitive files. One of them was Cardinal Mancini, who was assigned to manage secret documents related to Freemasonry and the Gnostic sect in Europe. Just a week after he presented the memo to the Holy Office, he resigned due to deteriorating mental health. Less than 3 months later, he died in a monastery outside Florence. No one attended the funeral. There was no statement from the Vatican. Some say he voluntarily became a recluse. Others believe he saw something he shouldn't have. Disappearing in silence. The monks know too much inside the Vatican. There are positions that no one talks about. The custodian of the basement, the custodian of the ancient library, the person who delivers documents at night to the cardinals. They often don't appear on staff charts. They don't get credit, but they are the first to read, and sometimes the only ones to see, documents that never make it to the public. From 1960 to present, According to unofficial statistics, there are about 12 people in this group who withdrew for personal reasons, after which no one knows where they went. Some people left diaries, just a few lines. I dreamed of a door in the seventh depth. There was no lock. Inside was something that should not exist. Who decides who gets to live and who must remain silent? No one knows if there is actually an internal control mechanism within the Vatican to deal with those who know too much. But there are coincidences. A pope about to release secret documents dies unexpectedly. A cardinal about to make his investigation report public suffers a stroke on the podium. A young monk working in the ancient map room leaves the Vatican without leaving an address, although he once wrote, "I found a border that doesn't match on the Vatican world map." Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe a choice. Because sometimes death is not the end. It is a form of eternal silence. When night falls on the Vatican, amid the faint ringing of bells and the flickering of candles in the stone corridors, there are stories unwritten, names never spoken, and memories no one speaks of. Maybe they are wrong. Maybe they are right too soon. And maybe there is still someone walking in that darkness, silent, keeping a secret that can never be told. Chapter 14. The room no one is allowed to enter. Every morning, the Vatican wakes up to the sound of bells echoing from the Basilica Tower. Monks walk down the corridors, books in hand, eyes downcast. The rituals begin as usual. But there is a moment no one talks about, no one witnesses, when the Pope himself disappears from his daily schedule. He was not in the square, not in the office. There were no meetings. He simply walked into a room, and alone. The room is not on the public map of the Vatican. It has no name, no code, no guard. It is located behind a nearly 2-meter thick stone wall in an ancient corridor that leads from the Apostolic Palace to a private chapel that has been closed for more than 150 years. The door leading to it had no handle. There was only a round lock, as if made from a mechanism no one else made, and only one key, the only one, in the Pope's hand. People call that place by a whispered name, the Second White Room. Because unlike the White Room where official guests are received, no one is allowed to enter this place. No secretary, no cardinal, no one to accompany him. There was only the Pope, and something was waiting for him inside. No one knows exactly what the room was used for, but from the fragmentary notes of those who served in the Holy See, there are strange details that repeat over time. The room had no windows, but was always softly lit, even without a lamp. There was a marble table in the middle, covered with a white cloth that no one was allowed to touch. Every time the Pope stepped out, his expression changed, quieter, more subdued, as if he had brought with him something indescribable. A young monk who was assigned to clean the nearby corridor recounted, "Every Saturday, at exactly the 10th hour, the Pope passes alone through that corridor. I always stand at a distance, as I was told, but once the door was not completely closed. I saw nothing. I only heard a whisper." He wrote a small note, which was then taken away. Not a prayer, not a human voice, like wind flowing through the throat of a formless creature. Some mystical scholars believe that it is where the Pope talks to God, not through prayer, but through another means, a form of metaphysical communication. Others believe the room, built based on ancient Babylonian structures, has the ability to spiritual resonance, opening up frequencies to receive things that are not part of the physical world. Another more extreme theory, that room holds something the Vatican is unwilling to let go. Not matter, but memory or a will that is not human. In an unofficial memo, a former papal secretary wrote, "There is an unwritten convention among the popes. Each one is handed the keys when he succeeds. No instructions are given. Just one word. When you enter, be lighthearted. Do not resist, do not ask why." And then in recent years, as popes have abdicated or died suddenly, a larger question has begun to form. Is it possible that no one wants to keep the key anymore? Is it possible that room is waiting for someone who will never come again? Or something has come out without anyone knowing. If one day you see the Pope disappear from the camera frame, no longer appearing in the square, and everyone says, he is praying, remember that room. No sound, no guard, no evidence. Just one person and one room and something waiting. Chapter 15, the prophetic council in the dark. The Catholic Church has always had a clear structure. The Pope is at the top. Below are the cardinals, archbishops, bishops, and pastoral and academic councils. But no one mentions a special group of people. They have no official titles. They do not sit on any councils. They are not elected. They do not appear in Vatican media, but every pope has met them. A small group of people, usually only 3 to 5 members at a time. They don't live in the Vatican, but they have access at any time. And their sole purpose, to predict what will happen to the church, to the world, and to faith. They are called by an informal name, the milestone watchers. The milestone is not the time, but the events. They do not prophesy in a mystical way. They do not practice divination or mediumship. They do not speak in poetry, nor do they fall into trances. They simply present a forecast, a recommendation, and a warning. All communications are encrypted, handwritten, and addressed to the recipient. No photocopying, no word of mouth. Historically, these people have only been mentioned a few times in internal documents, with nicknames like soul observers or celestial diary keepers. A handwritten letter from 1954, written in Latin, records the words of a cardinal. He didn't say much. He just put a piece of paper on the table. On it were 3 interlocking circles and the words, "The church will not fall, but will crack from within." 4 years later, a theological crisis broke out in Europe. More than 300 priests resigned. Many communities were divided. The popes are not obliged to obey, but hardly anyone ignores them, because according to the story, what they say will happen sooner or later, albeit in a different form, at a different time. Who are they? Nobody knows. The applications were not made public. They were not from the usual religious orders. They had no formal theological training. Some came from remote places, Poland, Tibet, Argentina. Some were people who had lived as hermits most of their lives, who were suddenly invited by the Vatican. Some were mathematicians. Others were doctors, poets, or mountain hermits. But they all have one thing in common, an almost supernatural intuition and an ability to interpret hidden signals in history, in natural phenomena, in dreams that recur between generations. The last of the group left a diary entry after leaving the Vatican forever. We do not predict the future. We only listen what the world is trying to forget. And sometimes the world forgets in order to survive. The Vatican remembers in order to survive. Are they prophets? Are they the ones who control the Pope? Or are they the last men who dare say what the church dares not think? No one answered. Just know that in every papal transition, there is always a meeting that takes place behind closed doors. Just 3 people, no recordings, no minutes. And then the keeper of the Vatican keys will begin his reign with a single message. The righteous is not only those who pray, but those who hear the warning, even when it has not yet been spoken. When the world is in turmoil, when faith is shaken, and when the unprecedented begins to happen, perhaps somewhere in the Vatican, a piece of paper has been placed on the table, a word has been sent, and a person in a white robe is silently contemplating before stepping into the light. Because light always needs to be oriented, but to orient first, one must dare to look into the darkness. Chapter 16, Heresies and Texts Expunged from Church History. There are things that have been written by human hands, by burning faith, by existential pain, and by the desire to understand God in one's own way. Those pages existed, were read, were passed on in the darkness of the Middle Ages, by silent monks, wandering believers in abandoned lands, people who were not called saints, but not exactly apostates either. They are the ones who are called by one name only, heretics, heresy. The word once carried images of evil, blood, and betrayal. But if we peel back the layers of fear, if we look closer at the burned words, what do we see? Maybe just another perspective, another way of understanding the faith, a branch of thought that doesn't follow the orthodox path. But maybe it's something the church fears that if it's true, everything else will have to be reconsidered. In the deep basement of the Vatican, it is rumored that there is a special area where documents that are never allowed to be read in public are stored. People call it the silent room. No nameplate, no listing, no description on any archive map. What is kept there? The Gospels were removed from the Bible. The writings of monastic orders were condemned as heretical. From ancient theological documents whose mere publication could shake the foundations of modern Christianity. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Philip. These texts were read, copied, and revered by thousands of early believers. But over time, one by one, they were removed from the canon of the Bible. Not because they were false, but because they were irrelevant, incompatible with the power orientation, incompatible with the organized model of faith, incompatible with the notion that the way to God can only be through the church. Take the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, for example. It describes an intimate relationship between Jesus and Mary, not simply as followers, but as one who understood him on a deeper level than even the apostles. In it, Mary says that God revealed to her things no one else has heard, secrets about the nature of the soul, about the invisible world, about the path back to the source of light. If this text is accepted, the role of women in the church will change. The male-dominated structure of the clergy will have to be re-examined. And the belief that only the apostles hold the truth will be shaken. The Vatican knows it. And the manuscript, the original, is now believed to be in archive box number 1047, sealed with 3 layers of lead, read only by a special monitoring group within the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Similarly, the Gospel of Thomas does not contain miracles. There are no scenes of healing, of turning bread, of walking on water. It is just words, called the Word of Life. In it, Jesus does not claim to be God. He invites people to look within themselves. The kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. If you knew yourselves, you would understand that you are children of light. It's not an invitation to believe. It's an invitation to awaken. And that's why it's dangerous. Because if people did not need an intermediary to reach God, the role of organized religion would change forever. Not only the Gospels, there are also ancient mystical texts, from monastic orders condemned as heretical, writings of the Cathars, Bogomils, Templars, books on the structure of the soul, the nature of light, cycles of reincarnation, extraterrestrial life, and unearthly messengers. Some of them are written in an undeciphered language. It is known that the Vatican has a copy but has never released it, because no one knows for sure if they can control the consequences of such disclosure. Perhaps the Vatican did not intend to bury them. Perhaps they were just afraid that one day, if the world read those documents with too simple a view, the truth would not be revealed, but would be distorted once again. And then, it is faith, not heresy, that will be the victim. If one day you hold in your hand an old manuscript, the ink faded, the words stained with time, and in it is written, God is inside you. What will you do? Will you burn it as a heretic? Will you hand it over to the guardians of truth? Or will you read on quietly and ask yourself, who decides what is right? And is it really right for everyone? Chapter 17, Scriptures removed from the Bible. Who decided? From childhood, every Christian, when opening the Bible to read, often thinks that this is the Word of God. Complete, unchanging, is a sacred thread written by the Holy Spirit Himself, without addition, without subtraction, without change. But the truth is not that simple, because the Bible, whether the Old Testament or the New Testament, did not fall from the sky. It is a collection of texts, selected, omitted, edited, passed through human hands in the light of faith, and sometimes in the shadow of power and fear. From the first centuries after Jesus' crucifixion, dozens, even hundreds, of Gospels and letters were copied and passed down by communities of believers. Each had its own voice. Each reflected a different belief, experience, and perspective on the Redeemer. Some versions describe Jesus as a teacher of Eastern wisdom. Some versions see him as a symbol of cosmic light, not a flesh and blood man. Some versions say that he laughed when he was crucified because the body is an illusion and the soul does not suffer. Some versions say that he taught about many worlds, many levels of souls, and the endless cycle of reincarnation. And then, all those versions were gradually pushed aside. In 325, at the Council of Nicaea, under the auspices of Emperor Constantine, the Church entered a historic turning point, unifying the faith, standardizing the canon, and most importantly, select what is considered true word and what is condemned as heresy. Since then, more than 30 Gospels have been eliminated. A series of texts associated with early Christian communities have been burned. Authors have been erased from history, and all that remains are just 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Not because they are absolutely correct, but because they are more suitable for creating a unified theology. Who decided? Not God, not the common people, but the bishops, cardinals, theologians, sitting in closed councils for decades afterward. They do not choose based on faith alone. They also consider political factors, control, and social influence. A text that states that everyone has an inner light would make the laity no longer need the intermediary of priests. A text that emphasizes equal love between men and women would shake the patriarchal structure. A text that mentions reincarnation would contradict the doctrine of heaven and hell. And just like that, the words once written with faith, with tears, with blood, were covered with dust or erased from this world. The Vatican does not outright deny these texts, but it does not publish them either. In the Vatican's secret library, a special area that houses non-canonical biblical texts, they are studied by specialized scholars, but are never allowed to leak without permission from the highest level. Perhaps the Church feared that if those texts were read by people who were not capable of analyzing, they would be misunderstood. If they were spread too widely, they would divide the faith. If they were declared true, the entire doctrinal system built over 2,000 years would have to be rewritten from scratch. But have you ever wondered if there are teachings deeper than what we know, lying silently in forgotten scriptures? Then what is the truth? And would our faith weaken or strengthen if we dared to look at all those truths? If one day you held in your hands a non-biblical text and felt in every line, not danger, but awakening, what would you do? Will you turn away for fear of being called a heretic? Or will you read on and ask yourself, could it be that those erased scriptures, the first true words cast aside not because of lies, but because their light was too early for the world to receive? Chapter 18. The Vatican's silent journey outside Christianity. The Vatican, people often think, exists only between the white marble columns, the golden dome, and the ringing bells in St. Peter's Square. It is the place of the Pope, the cardinals, and the prayers read at Mass, a center of religion. But that's just the surface. Few people know that, for centuries, the Vatican has quietly sent small, discreet groups of people to places where God has never been named, strange lands where faith takes on a different form, a tree, a snake, a stone spiral in the desert. And the purpose is not just missionary. Jesuits from the 16th century crossed the sea to Japan, China, Tibet. They not only brought the Bible, they also brought maps, telescopes, manuscripts of Aristotle, Euclid, and most strangely, blank scrolls of paper that had not been written on. For what? Not to teach, but to learn. One of the diaries left by Father Matteo Ricci, a Jesuit who came to Beijing in 1601, wrote, "I entered a Taoist temple. I felt no resistance in my heart, only something very old, as if my soul had heard the prayer in a previous life." Matteo copied the I Ching. He noted down the principles of yin and yang, the 5 elements, and even the Luoshu diagram. These copies are still kept in the Vatican's secret library, but have never been published in their entirety. A century later, other monks came to South America, deep into the Amazon jungle. They did not build churches, They pitched tents, slept on the damp ground, eaten with the natives, and recorded oral stories about people falling from the sky, about voices from the sun, about stone doors leading into dreams of no return. The crude drawings, spirals, three-eyed men, a boat flying among the stars were rolled up, waxed, and brought back to Europe by monks. Not to be published, but to be kept. There is an unpublished report written in 1932 by a Vatican expedition to Mongolia, which records that they found in an old Buddhist monastery a bronze inscription of a bearded man standing among 12 intertwined rings of light, with the ancient Sanskrit inscription below, "He comes from the stars, bearing a promise to none." The inscription was brought back to Rome by the Vatican on a special train. It has never been included in any archaeological catalog. And then there is Tibet, the Himalayas, where the Vatican files are still unopened. It is said that some monks once lived in ancient Lamist monasteries, studying the levels of meditation, the phenomenon of inner light, and even the ability to transfer consciousness beyond the limits of matter. Some ancient Latin manuscripts speak of energy rising from the spine to the crown of the head. The seventh door opens when speech ceases, and light emanating from the human body without passing through the sun. The Vatican has never confirmed, but has not denied it either. Why is the Vatican interested in pagan knowledge? Why do they send people to the ends of the earth to listen to prayers that do not begin with Our Father? Maybe because they know something deep down. Faith, though by a different name, is still searching for the same thing: light. And that light is not limited to a religion. Not everyone in the Vatican agreed. Some saw the danger, that the blending would dilute the faith. But others, the quieter ones, believed that in every fragment of pagan belief, there was a fragment of a larger, still incomplete truth. If one day you see an old priest standing silently in front of a Hindu temple, his hands clasped, not praying, just looking, don't be quick to call it heresy. Maybe he was seeing God in another form, not through the cross, but through the light between his eyes, between his palms, between a wind from a land that human language has never properly named. Chapter 19. Strange artifacts in the Vatican Museum. Have you ever been to the Vatican Museum? Thousands of statues, paintings, ancient manuscripts, relics displayed in shimmering light. Visitors walk in long lines wearing audio devices, eyes looking up at the masterpieces of human genius. But that is just the visible part. The Vatican has more than just official galleries. It has archives with stone corridors, triple locked doors, a constant temperature, and items housed in sealed boxes labeled with symbols that don't fit into any classification system. People call that area by a quiet name, the Room of Uncertainty. Not a museum, not a library, but a place to store things that no one dares to define. An 18th century manuscript, written by a monk with access to the archives, records the following. There was a small room, no larger than a chapel, with 3 chests inside. Each chest contained an artifact I couldn't name. Not a decoration, not a religious relic. They were unlike anything I had ever seen. First artifact, a piece of metal, round, about a hand span thick. The top surface engraved with irregular curves. The bottom surface has a concave hole, as if to insert something. When shining a yellow light on it, it emits a halo. Not like reflecting light, but like glowing from within. No one knows what it is. No one knows where it came from. But it is housed in a lead box and sealed with wax bearing the cardinal seal. Second artifact, a scroll of parchment about 2 meters long, written in a language that was neither Hebrew, Latin, Greek, nor Sumerian. The characters resembled a combination of geometry and calligraphy, each letter a series of vibrating waves. Linguists invited by the Vatican had assumed that it was an artificial language, but after studying it for a few weeks, they withdrew their findings without giving any reason. One of them, later, left a single line in his diary. If this is writing, then who taught it, and to whom? Third artifact, a stone object shaped like a skull, but not like a human skull. The structure protrudes backwards, has no clear eye sockets, and the forehead is narrow like an inverted triangle. The age of the stone is assessed to be more than 12,000 years old. There is no original record, just a handwritten note attached, found near Qumran, does not match any known biological structure. And other objects in complete darkness, a thin gold map engraved with a landmass that has never been seen on any modern map. A cube-shaped stone which emits a super bass sound if placed near metal. A blue glass through which, when viewed, every word in the Bible appears red. All without explanation. Why does the Vatican keep them? Maybe because the Church doesn't want them to fall into the hands of the world. Not because they are dangerous, but because they challenge all existing religious frameworks of thinking. A handwritten manuscript, believed to have been written by a monk who personally oversaw the archive, records. If mankind cannot accept that God spoke to other peoples in other languages, then they will not be able to accept these objects. The question is not, what are they? But is the Church holding back the hidden part of human history? The parts that cannot be expressed in words? The evidence that shows the presence of something beyond human understanding? If one day you wander into an ancient archive and in the dim light of an oil lamp, you see an object that cannot be named, will you run away or approach? Because sometimes what scares us the most is not the object, but the silent question that comes with it. If this isn't yours, then who did it come from? And why here, right under one of the most sacred places in the world? Chapter 20. If Vatican had to reveal everything, what would happen to the world? For more than 2,000 years, the Vatican has been more than just a symbol of faith. It is a gateway between the earthly and the sacred. There are prayers that have never been said aloud. There are answers that have never been asked. And there are truths that only exist when hidden. But what if one day, just one day, all those doors were opened? The last basement brought to light, secret documents scanned online, objects displayed in St. Peter's Square? What will happen? You can imagine a global press conference. The Pope stood before millions of people and said slowly, "We have been silent, but now it is time to speak." And then each piece of the puzzle came into place. Original copies of the Gospels were discarded. Hand-carved texts describe a journey to the stars. Unidentified objects found underground in Jerusalem, Tibet, the Amazon. Symbols, maps, and scientific records from civilizations never recorded in history books. Some will cry, some will fall to their knees, not because their faith is shaken, but because they now see that God is greater than they were taught. But there will be those who cry out. Theological systems collapse. Dogma clashes with new heritage. Religious orders quarrel. Temples are empty. Because people sometimes need faith in a nutshell, more than the big truth. And in the scientific community, the whole world will be shocked. Evidence of alien life has been contacted thousands of years ago. Bioenergy structures, the thing quantum physicists are pursuing, have been noted since the Middle Ages. Time, space, life, death, all change definition. And the most terrible thing, if these things are true, then everything we have ever believed about beginnings and endings must be rewritten from the beginning. Why doesn't the Vatican reveal it? Maybe because they wanted to protect the faith. Maybe they knew that the truth was not ready to be received. An anonymous cardinal once wrote in a letter that was never published, "Silence is not betrayal. Silence is when we know. If we speak, someone will die, someone will rebel, someone will lose their way forever. And if one day all is revealed, the world will no longer be the same. We will no longer pray with memorized words, but with deep empathy from within. There will be no more right or wrong about religion. There will be only one thing, truth, complete, fierce, and so beautiful that it makes people speechless. If one night there is a knock on the door from the other side of history, you step out and find not an angel, not a devil, but someone who looks like you, but carrying a book no one has ever seen. He looks at you and asks, "Do you want to know everything? But if you do, you won't be able to go back to the way you were before." What would you say? Will you choose the light? Or will you keep the darkness safe? The Vatican has chosen. What about you? You have accompanied me all the way through the silent shadows of history, from relics, witchcraft, prophecies, to the silent corridors where power does not need words. All are in one place, the Vatican, a small city-state, but containing the biggest questions humanity has ever asked. We do not come here to judge, nor to believe or doubt. We come just to listen. Listen to the echoes of time resounding from stones, the whispers in ancient unread pages, and the silent voice in your own heart when faced with inexplicable things. The Vatican is not the answer. It is the question, a question no one has been quiet enough to fully hear. Perhaps there are things that should not be known in a hurry. There are doors that only open when the person standing in front of them is not looking for answers, but for understanding. If you are awake, thank you for coming this far. Thank you for bringing respect for the sacred. Whether you believe, doubt, or are still quietly asking.